A royal yes, Spain awaits Princess Leonor's emotional wedding moment. Spain thought it knew what to expect. A royal wedding, a fairy tale ceremony, a future queen walking toward destiny with grace and perfection. But what Spain did not expect was the moment that completely froze the nation. A moment no one saw coming, a moment so raw, so emotional, so undeniably human, that it changed how millions saw Princess Leonor forever. And here's the twist: it wasn't the dress, it wasn't the location, it wasn't even the groom's entrance. It was something far more intimate, far more revealing. Something that made Spain hold its breath and whisper, "This is the real Leonor." Yet almost nobody knows exactly what happened, or why that moment carried such a powerful emotional charge. Today, we uncover the truth Spain has been waiting to hear. From the very beginning, this royal wedding wasn't just another event. It wasn't just another chapter in the Spanish monarchy. It was the beginning of a transition Spain has been quietly preparing for. The rise of a new generation, the beginning of Leonor's era, the moment when the young princess who trained for duty finally stepped into her future with love leading the way. But behind the smiles, behind the stunning photographs, behind the carefully curated palace announcements, there was a deeper story, one filled with family tension, unspoken worries, long-protected truths, and a love that grew in the most unexpected ways. And that is where our journey begins. To understand the emotional weight of this moment, we must start with something Spain has witnessed but never truly understood: Leonor's transformation. For years, she was the princess who followed every rule, every protocol, every expectation. But in 2025, the country saw a different side of her: confident, outspoken when needed, tender in moments that mattered, fiercely protective of her private life, and surprisingly, deeply romantic. Sources close to Zarzuela Palace have repeatedly described her relationship as grounded, loyal, and quietly intense. This wasn't the typical, royal pairing. It was personal, it was real, and it was quietly unfolding away from public eyes. That is why Spain became obsessed with this wedding. Not because of the monarchy itself, but because Leonor allowed people to feel connected to her story. For years she was a symbol. Now she felt like a daughter of the nation stepping boldly into adulthood. And the question that silently echoed across the country was simple: who could possibly be worthy of her? The answer, as we now know, came in the form of a partner who surprised everyone: someone not born into royalty, someone not raised for palace life, someone whose presence introduced something Spain didn't know it needed: authenticity. The morning of the wedding was unlike any royal announcement in recent memory. Streets were already filled before sunrise. Spanish flags, flowers, cheers, emotional older women whispering prayers for the future queen, families standing shoulder to shoulder, teenagers holding handmade signs with Leonor's name. Spain had been waiting for this day, not with curiosity, but with emotion. With pride. With hope. Because this wasn't just the wedding of a princess. This was the symbolic turning of a page. Inside the palace, however, emotions were even more intense. Queen Letizia was reportedly unable to hide her tears as her eldest daughter prepared. King Felipe struggled between his role as monarch and his role as father. And Leonor herself, usually composed, usually reserved, had a moment of visible vulnerability. A private moment that would later become the emotional center of the entire ceremony. But before we reveal what that moment was, there's a question that must be answered. Why was this particular wedding so emotionally charged? What made it different from every royal event Spain has seen in decades? The answer lies in the family dynamics. Leonor is the first Spanish female heir to ascend in modern history. Her journey has been watched closely, sometimes harshly, sometimes protectively. But unlike previous royal figures, Leonor grew up in a world shaped by technology, public scrutiny, and the pressure to appear perfect. And yet, she never crumbled. Instead, she evolved. More Spanish than royal, more human than untouchable, and in a way, Spain saw itself in her. Her struggles became relatable. Her victories were celebrated like those of a beloved daughter. This wedding carried the weight of those years. The hopes, the doubts, the expectations, the dreams. And as Spain watched her step into that wedding venue, everyone felt it: something monumental was about to happen. Now, here is the moment that triggered everything, the moment Spain can't stop talking about. As Leonor reached the central aisle, a gust of wind lifted her veil slightly. Nothing unusual, but what followed sent a ripple across the venue. Leonor paused. She closed her eyes. And when she opened them again, she looked directly at her mother with a softness no camera had ever captured. Letitia's expression collapsed into pure emotion. Not royal poise. Not queenly elegance. Just a mother overwhelmed. And then, Leonor mouthed something silently. A message only her mother could understand. A message that instantly made Queen Letizia bring her hand to her heart and look away to hide the tears forming. That moment, that quiet, unplanned, deeply personal exchange, was the emotional spark Spain didn't expect. And it set the tone for the entire wedding. What did she say? What could cause such a strong reaction in a queen known for her discipline and composure? Palace insiders later revealed a clue, but not the full sentence. All they would say was this: it was a message of gratitude, love, and acknowledgement of everything Letizia sacrificed to protect her daughter's future. But what's more interesting is this: that moment wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't planned. It was Leonor breaking protocol in the softest, most beautiful way possible, reminding the world that even future queens need their mothers. And from that moment on, people watched Leonor differently. She wasn't just walking toward her husband. She was walking toward her destiny with her entire nation walking emotionally beside her. The energy shifted. The atmosphere deepened. Even King Felipe, who normally maintains strict composure during official ceremonies, was seen blinking rapidly, trying to maintain control. The emotional tension grew thicker with every step she took. But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. While the world focused on the entrance and the vows, there was another storyline unfolding silently, a more subtle but equally powerful narrative involving King Felipe. Many forget that this wedding represented a transition for him as well. As Leonor rose, he subtly began preparing to one day step aside. And this ceremony symbolized that shift. A father watching his daughter move into the next phase of her royal life, while internally preparing for his own final chapters as king. Those who were close to him said he felt the weight of the moment in a way that surprised even him. As the ceremony progressed, another layer of tension formed, and it had nothing to do with drama. It had to do with what this union represented. The Spanish monarchy has always carried a delicate balance between tradition and modernity. But Leonor's wedding broke that pattern. This was a modern fairy tale rooted in real emotion. And Spain loved it. Loved the sincerity. Loved the vulnerability. Loved the sense that their future queen wasn't hiding behind formality. She was leading with connection. Yet there was still one unanswered question keeping viewers completely locked in. Would Leonor maintain her royal composure during the vows, or would her emotions spill over again? People watched eagerly, waiting for the next crack in her princess armor. And it came, beautifully, unexpectedly, and with the kind of authenticity that shook the entire venue. As she began her vows, her voice remained steady. But halfway through, she glanced at her future husband, and something shifted in her expression, something Spain wasn't ready for. Her voice broke. Just slightly. Just enough to reveal the depth of everything she felt. It was a sound that echoed through the room, a sound that silently told Spain, "This is real. This is love. This is my truth." And in that moment, the audience inside the venue collectively breathed in, as if trying to hold the moment still. But what happened next created a new curiosity loop that kept everyone emotionally glued. Leonor paused. Just for a second. And her husband to be reached gently for her hand, a gesture so simple yet so powerful that it instantly became symbolic. It wasn't a royal gesture. It wasn't a staged moment. It was two young people choosing each other. Choosing vulnerability. Choosing partnership. And Spain watched in awe. But here's the twist many people still don't know: that moment almost didn't happen. Days before the wedding, palace insiders report that Leonor had confided in someone very close to her that she worried about becoming too emotional during the ceremony. She felt the pressure of being watched by millions. The pressure of representing the crown. The pressure of living up to centuries of tradition. And she feared that showing too much emotion would make her look unprepared or overly delicate. However, someone reassured her, someone whose identity remains private. They told her that Spain didn't want a marble statue as their queen. Spain wanted a human being. A leader who felt, who connected, who loved. And those words stayed with her. When her voice cracked, instead of hiding it, she let it be. This vulnerability became the highlight of the entire event. It wasn't the perfection of the ceremony that made Spain emotional. It was the humanity of it. It was the realization that the future queen wasn't pretending. She wasn't performing. She was simply being herself, and letting Spain see it. Now let's talk about the moment Spain replayed more than any other. The kiss. But not the official kiss. Not the one captured by cameras. The other one, the private one that happened seconds before they turned toward the crowd. A tiny, intimate gesture that revealed more about their relationship than any official statement ever could. Right after exchanging vows, Leonor and her husband stepped aside for a brief moment while music played. And in that tiny pause, when they thought the main cameras were focused elsewhere, he whispered something to her, something that made her eyes widen in surprise before softening into a smile no one had ever seen from her in public. Then he leaned in and kissed her forehead gently. Not the lips, not the cheek, the forehead. A gesture of protection, a gesture of loyalty, a gesture so tender that it instantly became the emotional core of the ceremony. Why did this forehead kiss matter? Because in royal tradition, public affection is usually controlled and minimal. But this wasn't a royal gesture. This was a man telling the future queen, I'm here. I'm with you. You're not alone. And that subtle, intimate moment told Spain everything they needed to know about the couple's bond. But while the world focused on Leonor and her husband, another storyline was unfolding quietly, and it involved Queen Letizia. Her emotional reaction throughout the ceremony became one of the most talked about aspects of the entire day. Letizia has always been protective, always meticulous, always committed to shielding her daughters from public scrutiny. But on this day, her guard broke. And when the cameras caught her wiping a tear discreetly with the corner of her glove, something shifted in Spain's perception of her. She was no longer just the elegant queen. She was a mother letting her daughter go. A mother confronting the passage of time. A mother realizing she was watching the next generation take their place. And that realization sparked yet another emotional thread, the transformation of Princess Sofia. While this was Leonor's day, all eyes also noticed Sofia's new maturity. At 18, she stood poised, supporting her sister, symbolizing the unity of a royal family that has grown closer through challenges. And there's a detail many viewers missed. When Leonor walked past Sofia after the vows, the two sisters shared a tiny, almost invisible nod. A gesture that spoke volumes. A gesture that said, we've got this. We're in this together. The ceremony continued, but every moment seemed to deepen the emotional connection between the royal family and the country. And this connection wasn't accidental. It was the product of years of change, years of transparency, years of Spain allowing itself to embrace a modern monarchy that reflected its people. And Leonor, with every step, every smile, every tear, embodied that evolution. Then came the reception. And here, the emotional intensity reached a new peak. Because this is where Spain saw Leonor fully relax for the first time. Away from the formalities, away from protocol, away from the expectations, she laughed. She danced. She hugged friends. She allowed herself to be exactly who she truly is, a young woman in love, surrounded by the people who shaped her life. But even in this celebratory moment, new curiosity loops began forming. For instance, what did the king whisper to Leonor during their father-daughter moment? Why did Letizia take a brief step away with a visibly emotional expression? And what did the groom say during the private family toast that made Leonor's eyes well with tears again? These details, while small, became massive points of interest because they revealed something deeper. This wedding wasn't just about romance. It was about transition, about responsibility, about legacy. Now let's return to the question that started it all. What was the emotional moment Spain didn't expect? What was the moment that shifted the entire atmosphere? It wasn't the dress. It wasn't the procession. It wasn't the music. It was that silent, deeply intimate exchange between Leonor and Letizia, a moment that reminded Spain of something we often forget. Behind the titles, behind the crowns, behind the centuries of tradition, there are still hearts. There are still mothers and daughters. There are still young people in love. And there are families trying to balance duty with emotion. In the end, this wedding wasn't about perfection. It was about authenticity, and Spain embraced it fully. Because what the country truly wanted, what it has always wanted, wasn't a flawless queen. It was a relatable queen. A human queen. A queen who carries love into her leadership. And Leonor proved in one single day that she is exactly that. As Spain looks forward to her future reign, there is a new atmosphere across the nation, a mix of excitement, pride, and a renewed sense of unity. And all of it began with one emotional moment. One heartfelt exchange. One royal yes. Spain awaits her next chapter. But on this day, Spain wasn't just watching history. Spain was feeling it.